Yeah, I got kids again. We'll leave it at that. Okay. Yeah, practice for tonight. Yes, thank you, and thank you, Loretta. I have to say, you must know that Loretta is the best recruit for Golden Seeds, and she and I had a lovely breakfast last year, and Bernie and I were talking this morning because I feel completely out of my element, surrounded by a lot of former Wall Street finance people. And I'm meeting Loretta, and I felt like I met someone who spoke my language, and it felt like there's a place where I could belong. So thank you for that, Loretta, very, very much. And and Bernadette, who she introduced. So Bernadette, manages as our national platforms, but I also wanted to have Bernadette talk a little bit. She also manages all of our digital distribution, including our managing partnerships with Apple and Microsoft. And I'll get into a little bit about our digital distribution strategy, but Bernie is also really probably one of the biggest innovators at HBO, who's driving a lot of our technology partnerships, and has started a mentor program with Techstars here in New York, and is actually the mentor to 2 businesses, which maybe she can talk about. So that I'm today really just going to give you a very general overview of our business, and then specifically kind of our challenges, and talk about some things that are going on in the industry, but I'm keeping it very broad because I want to keep lots of time open for questions and everything else. So let me just get right in. I think I have something, at least I always try to do this to get everybody's attention. Here we go. You can turn the lights down if you want to. Your heart's beating so fast, it seems out of control. There's just something you got that I've been longing for. Ayo, 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 come on, baby, come on. All we can give it now is justice. Gives you a little flavor for us. And I will say, this is just what I was going to review today, just give you a general overview of HBO, specifics to our business, a landscape of the industry, talk a little about HBO Go. I'll tell you, HBO is the world's most successful paid TV service, and I do not mean to be an evangelist for the company, but I have to say it's never been a more exciting time to be in my seat, and I've been here for 25 years, so I'm pretty thrilled to be able to tell you that on all fronts. So we comprise, as you saw in that video, 2 services, HBO and our sister service, Cinemax. We've got 114 million subscribers worldwide, branded networks in over 70 countries. We license our content in over 150 countries. We've got, as I said, HBO On Demand, Cinemax On Demand, HBO Go, Max Go, and we are the most watched paid service in the US. We are probably riding a high at this moment as we speak. Game of Thrones, I don't know if anybody watched Game of Thrones here. It premiered on Sunday night. It's the second most watched episode in HBO's history, right behind the finale of The Sopranos. It exceeded with 6.6 million viewers on Sunday night. Last year, I think our opening was 4.4 million viewers. It is unheard of. And a day in a world where people are watching television at different places and at different times, the fact that we actually got that type of viewership in a linear play, and comparing it to Sopranos, which is a very different viewing environment, is actually unprecedented. So we are just really, really thrilled about, we are really on a creative renaissance. So Game of Thrones, the other thing you might have seen, there's a movie, Normal Heart, starring Julia Roberts, based upon the book, Tony Fisher book. That comes out this year. And then I hope you guys, if you haven't, you must watch Silicon Valley. It is a Mike Judge satire of Silicon Valley. It premieres right after Game of Thrones. And for a lot of you in the space, time and tech companies, yeah, you will definitely appreciate it. So we are in like I said, a real creative renaissance, and we couldn't be more thrilled. Just a little bit about where kind of what I'm going to talk about today, where I sit. So last year, HBO generated $4.9 billion in revenue. And most of it is from our domestic subscription business, and that's my world. And so the domestic business represents about 82% of our total revenue, and the rest is comprised of what you see on the screen, primarily international, some home video, and some licensing and others like that. So I'm going to actually focus on our domestic subscription business, and it's probably what you guys are reading the most about. There's tons of change happening in that world. But to tell you just a few scary facts about where I sit, there's been tons of, I deal, and Bernie, we deal with all the distributors. We're a wholesaler. I always go, when I talk to the interns every summer, I always ask, what do you think is the #1 question I get when I tell people I work for HBO? What do you think it would be? Imagine I asked a bunch of college interns this. I said, what's that? First thing they ask is, do you get HBO for free? Well, yeah, and I always, it's a hope that's the first question they're going to ask, because it provides a great lesson on our business. We are a wholesaler, not a retailer. And for me to get HBO for free would mean I have to ask Verizon Fios to give it to me for free, because you write your check to them, you don't write the check to HBO, and then you get the all the not. So no, I don't get HBO for free. Then I get the questions about the celebrities and that kind of thing. But so that's kind of the lesson. And so yes, what's scary about this chart that you're looking at is when I started, and Bernie always knows when people ask me how long I've I've worked at HBO, I say, can I tell you I'm 49 years old instead? That's how much I like cringe at the thought I've been at the same company for 25 years. But what I have seen in that 25 years is a total transformation of the distribution universe. And when I started, there were, thousands and tens of thousands of distributors. My very first job in Philadelphia, Mindy and I reminisced about this, because she and I lived on the same street in Philadelphia way back then, and we just realized that. So my job as an account executive in sales was calling on 3 markets in Ohio: Columbus, Cincinnati, and Dayton. That's all I did. And because within Columbus, there were 5 different cable operators that were there about driving our business. Now, this is the world that we live in. The consolidation has resulted in that Comcast is 19% of our revenue, and we'll talk about this potential Comcast Time Warner cable merge. You put those 2 triangles together, they represent 27% of HBO's total revenue. Exactly. So this is the major change that's happened in the industry as this consolidation, and I'll talk about the implications of that in a minute. But what do we do specifically? My group, a lot of people are really surprised to hear that. There's about 160, 170 employees in the department. 8% of them are in New York, 20%, we got some in LA and Atlanta, and some are remote. We drive the revenue, so that we make the money so we can create all that great shows that you guys get to see. I actually think it's the people, when I tell people I manage the business side, they just shut down because that's not very fun. I have to say, I think it's the funnest job in the company. I love where we are. I love the uncertainty. I love the challenge. So what do we do? First of all, we do all those really fun, nasty, horrific carriage negotiations with the Comcasts of the world. And they are as awful as you read about in the paper. We also, and this is what Bernie drives, the new partnerships are with the deals that we're doing with Apple and Microsoft and those types of things. And those are basically negotiating to get HBO Go on their platforms. There's not necessarily money involved, but there's huge implications in terms of rights and what they can do and future possibilities. So they are really, we see them as big future economic drivers for us. This is always really surprising to people. So why I love the premium business, first of all, we're not ad supported, which is fantastic because that's a whole mess in and of itself and what's going on in ad supported networks. But we are a subscription service, and so we lose over half of our subscribers every single year. So some of it is uncontrollable because they move in, but some of it is, people downgrade or get rid of their service because of money or they didn't like the show or all types of things. So my team, not only do we do the deals, then we have to operationalize the deals to drive transactions for the services every single year. So hence, the big chunk of what our department does is to actually try and drive transactions to generate subscriptions for us. And so when I mentioned those remote employees, what will make or break our success in that arena is what happens when you call Comcast and the customer service rep answers the phone. If they don't choose to offer you HBO with a special or whatever it be that my team has driven and negotiated, all the marketing in the world, might as well throw it out the window. So those remote employees that we have generally work out of their house and they live in the call centers for our distributors. And they are in there putting in incentives and motivating the customer service reps to make sure that they sell HBO when they call. We will put every single marketing cent in the call center versus an ad if we could. That makes or breaks our business. It fundamentally is a very unsexy business in that regard. So it's a huge challenge in terms of the marketing side, but it's fun. So, and some of it could be like, it's just the call centers are huge, but also, and Bernie's team leads us too, and we do these co-branded marketing solutions. And so, for example, Time Warner Cable, the narcissistic CMO really loves talent, and he wants to show these really fancy commercials during the Super Bowl where it features Daenerys from Game of Thrones. And in return for that, we negotiate all this transactional stuff. You talk to someone at Fios, they're very product driven, they're not interested in talent, we might have a very different solution for them. So our team's challenge is really trying to identify HBO solutions to the challenges and opportunities our distributors present. We do product launches and deployments, we do, and then essentially now really determining the overall product and distribution strategy for us to drive incremental revenue in the future. So that's in a nutshell. So currently there are 118 million TV households. You guys might read a lot about cord cutters, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term over the top, which is in a lot of the lexicon. Over the top is the big debate in the industry about how content folks are going to go around the cable companies to go directly to the consumer. HBO Go is an example of something that they're kind of leery of because they think it's a Trojan horse for us to go around them in the future. But let me just give you a little sense of the opportunity. So there's 118 million households. Currently, there's 76 million of them that we call basic only, that they have a basic video package, but they do not have HBO. Only 25 million subscribers in the country have all had HBO. And when you think about it, that we're only in a quarter of TV households, it's quite amazing that we can actually drive as much as the social dialogue that we do regarding our content. And that's the other thing to remember about Game of Thrones. When it delivers an audience of 6.6 million, we're only in a quarter of TV households. So that's bigger than like, I mean, if that was on a basic network, that would be Super Bowl type numbers. So it's actually quite amazing. But the cord cutters that you hear about, this 10 million broadband only, that's when people have a high-speed data connection and don't have any video service. And that would be potentially the cord cutting opportunity, if you will. The over-the-air 7 million, those are I call the cave dwellers. They're people that have no broadband connection, no video, and they just have an antenna and live somewhere. They are not an opportunity. And so this is kind of how we look at the world, and I think the biggest opportunity for us is clearly in the moment, those 76 million basic only homes. However, disruption is happening all around us. And so every day there's a new article, whether it's about Netflix, who likes to compare themselves to HBO at every moment that they, at every opportunity that they can. Apple TV teaming up with it's every day there's something else that you think is going to disrupt our world. And why is that happening now? Because of this. This is the growth of TV households, and it used to be every year, and I could take you back 20 years, and you could show how many more TV households came into the universe, and you can see 2007, 8, 9, they're growing 1 to 2 million new TV households a year. The cable guys, cable is a generic term. MVPD, I don't know, have you guys heard the term MVPD? It stands for multi-video program distributor. It encompasses anybody that distributes a video product. So they were growing in spite of themselves prior to 2010. Every year, their business was growing because there were new household formations, new TVs, everything. Well, in 2009, we all know what happened in 2009 with the economy, right? So suddenly, their growth engine went to almost flat. 2013 was the first year ever that they've lost TV households. So what's happening is that it creates an opportunity for lots of disruption. And what happened in 2010 with the economic crisis, it actually forced people to cut their bills and look for alternate ways of consuming content. And now what you've done is you've habituated people to finding other ways to watch. And what also is happening is, when I mentioned the 25 million households in which HBO is, it's almost, we've somewhat been depressed to that state for this reason right here. HBO is not a $15 product. It's a $163 product. Cinemax is even more, $186. Because what they do is they put our services at the top of their bundle packages to pull you through and buy their more high margin services. So they like us up there, and we're kind of artificially suppressed because we're so expensive. So this has really been, a kind of a big challenge in terms of we've been very value focused, right, as far as trying to show how much we're worth. But after a while, it gets very, very expensive. But the good news is that the internet growth and what's happening on TV households is forcing distributors to change how they price and package and bundle as they risk losing video subs. So Comcast introduced this $50 broadcast basic tier with high-speed data. Time Warner Cable and Cox will follow. That is fantastic for us. And this has actually ended up driving some significant opportunity for us. HBO, the last 2 years, we've had our best subscriber growth in over 17 years, 2 years in a row. So it's driven by the environment and a lot of things, but it's been fantastic. One big driver of our success is HBO Go. How many are you guys are familiar with HBO Go? It is, and Cinemax Go has we have a Max Go product too for Cinemax, which is available on mobile. And these are the devices where you'll find HBO Go on all the Android and iOS devices: Roku, Samsung, smart TVs, Apple TV, Xbox 360, and most recently PS3. And so you can see it's like people have become very addicted to watching, as evidenced by HBO Go crashing on Sunday night during the premiere of Game of Thrones. Bernie and I were just saying, I would suggest you all set your DVR for this Sunday and for the rest of the season. HBO Go, the platform which was built back in 2009, has not been able to transform fast enough to the demand for the product. So we have created a whole engineering office in Seattle. Our CTO is one of the founders of Xbox, and they are rapidly creating kind of a Go 2.0, but the money can't buy time, and unfortunately it takes time. So, in spite of HBO Go being fantastic, some challenges remain, and you'll notice these are some of the hate tweets that go out to affiliates that choose not to authenticate. Just as a reminder, when you go on HBO Go, you have to be a subscriber to a video package with a distributor. So you go and you select your provider, Comcast, and then you put in your ID, and it says, okay, you have permission to watch, essentially. And the industry called TV Everywhere. Some distributors don't want to authenticate HBO Go on certain devices because, and I'll just go Comcast, and it also speaks to the concern we have about the pending Comcast Time Warner Cable merge. Because Comcast wants to create a walled garden through their set-top box to the TV set. So they don't want you to have to go out of their world to be able to access content. So they're building these boxes, X1 is what they call it, their platform's called Xfinity. They're fine with mobile, but they don't want to authenticate on any device that connects HBO to the TV set. They think, again, that we're going to like end up going around them, and they don't want to do that. They are big, bad bullies. So some of the tweets, they are not authenticating on PS3, and so they're not authenticating on Roku, and they pretty much told us it will not be authenticating on any device that connects to the TV in the future, including things they've already agreed to authenticate. So there will be no Xbox One, no PS4, no nothing. They'll all have to go through that, and that's before they take over Time Warner Cable. Here, just show you the spot. PS3 launched when, 2 months ago? And we run these spots on air. We've got one for, every time that we launch on a new platform. So we're probably pretty much done with deploying on new platforms for the most part, with maybe a few exceptions, until Go 2.0 rolls out, which will be a little while. So you guys might have read about some of these latest industry announcements. Comcast Time Warner Cable merger, and I'll talk about the implications of that in just a second. But basically, it significantly enhances Comcast negotiating leverage by creating this behemoth MVPD. More importantly, and for those of you that are probably not watching kind of, the regulatory scrutiny started yesterday in Washington. But what to me is frightening about it is that, so Comcast will control 30% of the video households in the country. They'll control 40% of the broadband households in the country. And actually, for you to get streaming services, you really ideally need like 25 megs or higher. They'll control 50% of the market that has 25 megs or higher. So the implications, I think, for the industry are huge. I thought the Washington Post had the best article like a week or so ago. They said, so what happens when the #1 most hated company buys the #2 most hated company? Yeah, crazy. I don't know how many of you guys read or familiar with this Disney landmark distribution agreement with Dish Network. Dish was Disney is ESPN and ABC and everything else, and basically they signed a deal with Dish just about a month ago, where they are the first to allow, Disney is the first to allow a distributor to create a virtual MVPD. And what that means is that they're like taking their content services over the top and allowed to offer it through IP delivery around the country. And it really portends of things to come. If you take a look